Hey everybody, hopefully you enjoyed your map testing days. No, map testing is super fun, so yeah, there you go. We're going to pick it up right where we left off with some angle relationships. So we talked about complementary and supplementary. Today we're going to take it a little step farther, and we're going to learn a lot of vocab. So we're going to talk about parallel lines. Not with this marker, we're not. Parallel lines there we go, that have a line that intersects them. Okay? So when we have this situation, maybe we know something like, label our lines here. Line 2 is parallel to line 3. When you see two L's like that, that means parallel. Okay, so line 2 is parallel to line 3. Then we have a bunch of angles that happen inside of here. So I'm just going to label them for you guys. Like that. Okay? There's 8 angles in here. So line 1 here, we call that a transversal. Transversal. A transversal is just a line that intersects a set of parallel lines. So when we have a transversal that goes through a set of parallel lines like this, then we have a bunch of angle relationships that happen here. And so we're going to talk about what each one of these sets are, give you some examples. Today's just going to be basic vocab. Tomorrow we're going to use these to solve kind of like a puzzle type problem with this. So the first type of angles we'll call vertical angles. And vertical angles are angles directly across from each other. So for example, here in our picture, vertical angles would be like angle 2 and angle 8. Or angle 7 and angle 5. And those angles, if they're vertical to each other, are congruent. That's what's going to be important here. Pretty much all the ones that we're going to talk about today are going to be congruent angles. So if they're directly across from each other, when they meet together like in an X like this, they're going to be congruent. And that actually works even without parallel lines. If you just cross your arms, the angles that they make are going to be congruent on the top and bottom and the left and the right. So anything across from each other. That's the only one that kind of works without this whole setup here. But you definitely will need the setup for the rest of them. Okay. I'm not trying to cut off, but I'm going to use some board space over here. Okay, next one we have alternate. Actually, let's go corresponding. Corresponding angles. Yeah, that shows up on the board. Okay. Corresponding angles are angles in the same position at different intersections. So, for example, in our picture here, angle 1, maybe I call this like west. If I look down here, it corresponds to angle 7 because they're in the same position, just at the different intersection points. So angle 1 is actually going to be congruent to angle 7 because they are corresponding angles. Same with angle 3 and angle 5, right? And angle 2 and angle 4 and angle 8 and angle 6, right? Those are all corresponding angles. So they're in the same spot, just at different locations. And that's going to make them congruent, which is important. Then we have alternate interior. Alternate interior angles are angles inside the parallel lines on different sides of the transversal. So they're inside the parallel lines, that's why they're called interior angles. Alternate means they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So if you look inside, that means like between the two parallel lines. So like 8, 3, 7, and 4, those are all inside, interior angles. But the ones on opposite sides would be 8 and 4. Those are alternate interiors. And so is angle 3 and angle 7, right? Those are also alternate interiors. So they're inside, but they're on opposite ends of this transversal, opposite sides of the transversal. They make a little Z if you connect like the parallel lines. The ones inside the Z, or if you go this way, are the ones that are congruent to each other. So those are alternate interiors. All right. There's also, I think I can fit alternate exterior on here. Alternate exterior, which are the exact same thing, just they're outside the parallel lines. Angles outside parallel lines on different sides of the transversal. I think I'm still on the board. Yeah, cool. All right, you can see me. So alternate exterior would be like angle 1, and then do the same thing but go on the outside, angle 5, right? They're outside the parallel lines on the opposite side. So angle 1 and angle 5 would be congruent because they're alternate exterior. And likewise, angle 6 and angle 2 are both outside and they're on opposite ends. So angle 6 and angle 2. Those are our 4 sets of angles that are congruent to each other. When we have parallel lines like this, we have verticals, we have corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior. And we're going to use those 4 angles to find all the different relationships and all the different angles that exist kind of in this thing, which is pretty fun. So what's that kind of going to look like for us? Well, we're not there yet. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But there are some other angle relationships that are really important to us as well. So I'm going to erase these. Obviously, you can rewind if you need to look at any of those angles again. But I just don't have enough screen space here. Okay? So we also have something that kind of exists here between adjacent angles. Oh, line 2 is still parallel to line 3. That's important. So adjacent is just next to. You might hear orthogonally adjacent, which is like if you look at the tiling on the floor here, right? See the squares? This square is orthogonally adjacent to this square. It's orthogonally adjacent to this square, but not to this one, right? So if they're next to each other, usually in some sort of straight line fashion, then they are considered adjacent. So in this case, when angles are adjacent, all adjacent angles are supplementary. If you didn't notice before, all the angles that go next to each other make a straight line, which is kind of a really cool thing that happens here, right? 5 and 6, angle 5 and angle 6. But also angle 6 and angle 7 make a straight line. So there's every single set of angles that are next to each other are always going to add up to 180 degrees because they always make a straight line, like we talked about on Friday. And so there's a lot of really cool angle relationships here. There's 4 that are congruent, vertical, corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior. And then there's these ones that are supplementary, that are going to be next to each other, that are going to be adjacent to each other. So that'll kind of help you guys to figure some of these out. Tonight, for homework, it's just using that vocab, making sure you have the right angles, and you just have to pick a pair of them, you know, like angle 4 and angle 6 are vertical angles, right? So maybe for vertical, I'd write angle 4 and angle 6. Then I need a set of corresponding, so maybe I'd pick angle 3 and angle 5, right? So you're going to be looking at the picture and just using the vocab to talk about which ones are going to fit the word. And then we're going to use all this tomorrow in kind of a little cool puzzle solving type thing. All right, cool. Let me know if you have any questions. Almost the end of the quarter, so, you know, yeah, let me know. Later.